Welcome to the magnificent aviation hall of the Royal Army Museum in Brussels, where history still lingers around the corner and hangs in the air. Today I'm going to take you on a voyage with one of the last remnants of the Zeppelins of the First World War. In 1914, British citizens felt safe on their island nation, protected by the English Channel and the mighty Royal Navy. But the Great War brought a new kind of terror from the sky. For the first time in history, the front line moved to the doorsteps of civilians. The brainchild of Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, who first saw the potential of balloons during the American Civil War, these dirigibles were technological marvels. Unlike simple balloons, they had a rigid frame made of duralumin, a lightweight aluminum alloy. Inside were cells filled with highly flammable hydrogen. By the start of the war, these giants were 158 meters long and could reach altitudes of 20,000 feet, far above the reach of early fighter planes. While the German Navy used them as the eyes of the fleet for reconnaissance, Commander Peter Strasser pushed for their use as strategic bombers. The first raids hit Liège and Antwerp in Belgium, but England quickly followed in January 1915, and by May, the lacerated sky over London rained death on sleeping neighborhoods. Though material damage was often modest, the psychological impact was devastating. Due to the bombing of civilians, they were nicknamed baby killers. At first, the British were helpless. Standard bullets simply zipped through the gas bags without igniting the hydrogen. The tide turned in September 1916 with the development of new incendiary and explosive bullets to send the Zeppelin crashing down in a fiery blaze. To tackle this problem, the Germans developed a new class, the R class, or the Super Zeppelin class of Zeppelins. These could reach an operational ceiling of 5,000 meters, which held them out of reach of the British airmen. These massive vessels abandoned the simple parallel sides of earlier models in favor of a more streamlined, curved hull to improve performance. Measuring nearly 200 meters in length with a gas capacity of almost 55,000 cubic meters, they were significantly larger and more capable than their predecessors. The first of these new Zeppelins was the L30. Each Zeppelin had a distinct number, which commenced with LZ, so Luftschiff Zeppelin, from the Zeppelin company in Friedrichshafen, and the Zeppelins that were used in the military had a distinct number also. This one was used by the Kriegsmarine, which was preceded by the letter L. So this one is the L30 or the LZ62. So what were these massive airships actually made of? Despite their enormous size, Zeppelins were built using surprisingly lightweight materials. The internal structure was a rigid metal frame made from aluminum alloy called duralumin, strong enough to hold its shape but light enough to stay airborne. Inside that frame were multiple gas cells filled with hydrogen, which provided the lift. These gas bags were made of cotton fabric, carefully treated with sealants to prevent leaks. Covering the entire structure was an outer skin of stretched fabric, also usually cotton, coated to withstand weather and sunlight at high altitudes. And then, in the gondolas, the control and crew compartments, you'd find a mix of wood and metal construction, all held together with steel cables running throughout the airship. There was, however, one major flaw. Since the gas cells were filled with hydrogen, it made the Zeppelins extremely vulnerable for fire, which eventually led to their demise. A Zeppelin was also an airship, which made sense because it was used by the Kriegsmarine. It also had a naval crew, it had a naval captain, it had seamen. It also used nautical terms, and as such it also used 5 different gondola. This gondola here is the front gondola. There were also 2 gondolas at the side and 1 at the back. This front gondola was used to navigate and to steer. Unfortunately, we only have received the most ugly part of the front gondola, which is mainly approximately 1/3 of the total of the gondola. The crew consisted of the commander, an executive officer, warrant quartermaster,
a warrant engineer, a sailmaker on duty at all times to repair whatever leaks arose, 2 ruddermen, 2 elevator men, 2 radio operators and 2 mechanics for each of the 6 engines.
This is one of the side gondolas. It had an engine inside that drove the propellers and a crew of 2 members. There's also this pin mount to mount a machine gun. This is one of the Maybach engines of the Zeppelin. There were in total 6 of these engines. They were located in the gondolas, and each of these engines drove a propeller of 5 meters in diameter. Thanks to the engine, the Zeppelin could reach a speed of 100 kilometers an hour and a distance of 3,700 kilometers. These are parts of the transmission that drove the 6 impressive propellers of the Zeppelin. The Zeppelins had to be able to fly long distances, for instance to London and back. And for this they needed a lot of fuel. These are 2 of the 54 fuel tanks and oil tanks of the Zeppelin. In total they had 15,000 liters of fuel. This is a Telefunken radio which was mounted in the Zeppelin in 1917. It was used to communicate with home base and other Zeppelins and also to determine location via communication. It had a power of 800 watts and a total range of 1,500 kilometers. To defend itself in the skies, the Zeppelins were heavily armed. They carried a total of 10 Spandau 08-15 machine guns. They were mounted on the gondolas and on different platforms, and they fired in all directions, making it a true flying fortress. The Zeppelins had a huge load of bombs, a load of more than 7 tons of bombs, like this impressive explosive bombs, but also very small incendiary bombs to cause fires. And fun fact, in the beginning of the Zeppelins, they were just thrown out by the crew out of the gondolas. And later on, they used real bomb bays inside the Zeppelin. Another notable part is a so-called spy or observation gondola.
The small 1-person basket was lowered from airships during World War I to observe the ground from beneath cloud cover. Suspended hundreds of meters below a Zeppelin, it enabled observers to relay navigation and bombing instructions by telephone, with the airship remained concealed above the clouds. One surviving example, believed to have fallen from the LZ-90, is now preserved and displayed at the Imperial War Museum.
The L30 can be considered one of the most successful Zeppelins of all time. In total, it did 31 reconnaissance missions, 10 bombing raids, in which more than 23 tons of explosives were dropped.
Airship L30 was commanded by Kapitein Lieutenant Horst Freiherr Treusch von Butler-Brandenfels. First deployed in 1916, L30 operated from several bases, including Nordholz, Alhorn, Tordern and later Seerappen in East Prussia. From these locations it played a key role in Germany's airship warfare strategy. In September 1916, L30 took part in massive bombing raids on England. Although it survived these dangerous missions, many other Zeppelins were lost, highlighting the growing effectiveness of British air defense. One of these was its sister ship L33, which made an emergency landing on British territory. British engineers were able to examine its intact skeleton using the detailed plans drawn from the wreckage as the blueprint for their own post-war airship designs. On another raid, navigation problems forced L30 to turn back before reaching London. By 1917, L30 was deployed to the Baltic front during Operation Albion, supporting Germany's campaign to capture key islands in the Russian Empire. It carried out reconnaissance flights and multiple bombing raids across regions like Livonia and the Estonian islands. Targets included railway hubs, coastal defenses and villages. In some cases, L30 bombed from very low altitudes, increasing both its accuracy and risk. Despite its long and active service, L30 was retired in November 1917.
This may look like a piece of scrap, but it's actually what remains, together with some other pieces that we hold in the museum, of the M-class Zeppelin LZ-37, the first Zeppelin that was brought down by an aircraft.
On the night of June 6, 1915, while returning from a mission, LZ-37 was intercepted near Ghent, Belgium, by British pilot Reginald Warneford, flying a Morane Parasol aircraft. In a daring attack, Warneford climbed above the Zeppelin and dropped 6 small bombs onto it. The airship caught fire and crashed into a convent in Sint-Amansberg. The explosion killed most of the crew, including Commander Otto van der Hagen and tragically 2 nuns on the ground. 1 crew member survived after being thrown clear of the wreckage into a bed. Warneford's plane had been flinched away by the explosion and his engine had failed on him. He was forced to land 35 miles behind enemy lines, but managed to fix the engine problems in 15 minutes and took off just before the German cavalry approached.
This marked a turning point. It was the first time a Zeppelin was shot down by an aircraft, and for this the pilot Warneford received the Victoria Cross. At the end of the war, Zeppelins as a military vehicle were obsolete, and also the L30 wasn't used anymore in 1918. After the war, the Belgian state received the L30 as part of the war operations. But unfortunately, we didn't have the infrastructure to accommodate such a huge beast, and therefore what we see now are the only remains left.
Despite their majestic scale and advanced design, these hydrogen-filled giants ultimately remained vulnerable to the incendiary and explosive bullets developed by British home defense. The wartime menace of the Zeppelin officially ended in August 1918 when Peter Strasser was killed during the final raid on Britain. Of the 115 airships deployed, 53 were destroyed. They were eventually replaced by aircraft such as the Gotha bombers. These were faster, cheaper, less vulnerable from the weather and enemy fire, and provided for a smaller target. And yet, they left behind a chilling legacy.
For the first time in history, the sky became a battlefield in itself, and no one was safe anymore, even on the home front. And if you want to navigate a Zeppelin itself, you can do it in the video game Battlefield 1, in which our L30 is figured. So if you like this content, if you like this video, you can subscribe or give a like to our channel.